Story 1. I can parallel park in one smooth move every time. It is my only true superpower. Story 2. I made a meme on a small subreddit. A few hours later, my friend sent it to me and had no idea I had created it. Story 3. It does not matter how extroverted someone is or how good their people skills are. I am so socially awkward that I can make them uncomfortable in a matter of seconds. Story 4. I accidentally swallowed a jellyfish and lived without medical help. My parents did not believe me until they saw its body in the toilet. Story 5. I have a very good sense of smell. It is sometimes helpful, for example when I can smell something starting to burn before anyone else, but mostly it feels like a curse because there are far more unpleasant odors than pleasant ones. I always knew my sense of smell was good, but I realized how exceptional it was when I could almost visualize where someone had gone by following their perfume trail. Story 6. I've kept every plant I've ever bought alive for over 3 years. Not a single one has died. Story 7. My wife calls it my only superpower. I can be in a different room and know, just by the hum, the exact moment to run in and stop the microwave with 1 second left on the timer. It's not much, but it's honest work against the tyranny of the beeping. Story 8. I can fall asleep in under 2 minutes anywhere, even on flights, laughing out loud. Story 9. Give me your tangled necklaces, knotted headphone cords, and Christmas lights that look like a damn rat king. I will restore order from chaos. I am the unraveler. Story 10. I see a messy room, and my mind visualizes exactly how the finished, clean, and tidy room will look and where everything should go. Story 11. I can pin down a song's release year with a plus or minus 1 year margin of error. It was a fun party trick in college. Story 12. I can read very fast, which can be annoying when I'm reading with someone and have to wait for them. Story 13. I was the first person to trawl for microplastics in my local coastal waterway. We found microplastics in every sample. The trawl was done to create a visual impact and influence policy. Because of my project, scientists have conducted and continue to study the problem to quantify its extent. Story 14. I just finished building the ultimate generator shed. It has soundproof walls with a fabricated muffler, gas-powered struts for a soft-close lid, a solar-powered trickle charger, a 240-volt connection, fan ventilation, and a color match to the house and trim. It sits on a concrete pad. Story 15. I can write with my feet. It does not look good, but it is readable. Story 16. I can back up a trailer and finesse it into a driveway or garage. I am embarrassed to be flexing about this online, laughing out loud. Story 17. I am an amateur motocross rider who can do a backflip on properly placed jumps. I am chubby, so it surprises people when they see me do it. I can also do a standing backflip at 200 pounds. Story 18. I have the Dewey Decimal System memorized well enough that I can tell you almost exactly where a book would be without a card catalog. Story 19. Literally, my arms are flexible enough to scratch any spot on my back. The catch is that the rest of me is not flexible at all. Story 20. I participated in an eye movement study at a local university. The researchers told me that I could keep my eye incredibly still. I was trying very hard, so hearing that made me really proud. I've been thinking about it for months. Story 21. I took a photo of my mom holding my prop buster sword one Christmas. She was wearing a purple top and, with her blonde hair, looked like Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, so I thought it would be funny to snap a photo of her with the sword. Instead, it blew up and became a semi-viral meme. It is always a delight whenever it resurfaces. Story 22. I have a 100% success rate at the self-checkout. No unexpected item in bagging area, no flashing lights, and no calls for assistance. I am a goddamn retail ninja. My wife still makes me pre-rinse the dishes before they go in the dishwasher. Story 23. I can carry all the groceries from the car in one trip, regardless of the cost to my skeletal system or the structural integrity of the bread. Story 24. I made a Grease Monkey script for myself that about 6,000 other people used to hack an online game in a good way. For reference, I grew up in a town of 1,000 people, so 6,000 people seemed like a big deal more than 20 years ago. Some people reached out to me to modify the script as the user interface changed over the years. I have never seen or played the game. This all happened before social media. Story 25. Despite being 185 centimeters tall, weighing 65 kilograms, and appearing very thin, I can carry up to 45 kilograms of groceries or boxes at work. Story 26. I called someone a yapper in Parliament, and everyone chuckled. Story 27. I have managed to keep my pet bunny alive for 9 years and counting. Story 28. I can give girls nice, professional haircuts for free. I'm not even a hairdresser, just talent and YouTube videos. Story 29. I possess the ancient and powerful magic of being able to find an item immediately after my wife has spent 15 minutes looking everywhere for it. Story 30. I can fall asleep anywhere within 5 minutes, regardless of the noise or location. Story 31. I am healthy as fuck, which is quite sad because that indicates how problematic health is in my area. Story 32. I ran an early BitTorrent tracker before streaming services and YouTube began using so much bandwidth. At one point in 2004, I was indirectly responsible for about 3% of all the traffic on the internet. Story 33. I can, without prompting or guidance, locate where someone is carrying tension and accurately target a knot with my fingers. Story 34. I smell like dessert. I eat a lot of a spice called fenugreek, which makes my sweat smell like maple syrup. I use shampoo and body wash that smell like honey, and I moisturize with cocoa butter. The biggest downside is that early in the summer bees are attracted to me, and I am afraid of them. Laughing out loud. Story 35. I once trained my left hand and now can bend the little finger without moving the rest. Story 36. My plants have been alive longer than most of my relationships. Story 37. I can turn the bathroom fan switch to the on position using a towel from my bathtub. Story 38. I can eyeball level with pretty scary accuracy. I work in heating, ventilation, and air conditioning controls. I strip wires to exact lengths and make any wall-mounted thermostat level. Story 39. I don't know if pride is the right word. More so, I am surprised. I regularly have fully original compositions playing in my head throughout the day, with all the layers at once. Specific lyrics appear maybe half the time, but the vocal melody is always present. The main reason I do not associate this with pride is that I have failed to produce essentially anything. I grew up playing saxophone and taught myself enough piano to work in a digital audio workstation, but I always hit a wall when trying to decipher the original inspiration that arrived earlier. I leave melodic voice memos, but they do not carry enough detail to spark the full memory when I finally get time to record. I do record what I capture in a voice memo, but only fragments of the other layers come through, sometimes skewed or missing entirely. This was not always the case. I have worked on music production on and off since I was 17. I did not start getting full compositions hitting me on a whim until around age 25. I feel like Rick Rubin has the life. To be able to get that kind of talent in a studio, to just vibe and jam, is insane to think about. An absolute dream. Story 40. Maybe I could lucid dream whenever I wanted, but I do not know if I still can because I have not been doing it. Story 41. Every baked good and dessert I make turns out well, even on the first try. I have never forgotten or improperly measured an ingredient, confused one ingredient for another, or overbaked. I slightly reduce the sugar when a recipe seems too sweet. This does not affect the structure of the bake. I cannot do this with macaron shells, only the filling. Everyone who tastes them says they have the right amount of sweetness. My coworkers gobble everything up before the next shift gets to try them. Story 42. I have very good hearing and strong auditory associations. My partner gets weirded out because I can recognize the sound of the specific bowl he uses for yogurt and granola or the sound of a marker being taken out of our utensil cup to write on our calendar. From across the house or on a different floor, I will call, "Oh, yogurt time?" or "New appointment." And he is like, "What the heck?" I think this is partly because I was raised to be quiet. My dad worked nights and needed to sleep, so I became hypersensitive to noise. Also, my eyesight is poor, so my hearing had to pick up the slack. I laugh. Story 43. I can identify more than 40 species of North American warblers in all plumages. Story 44. As long as I have a visual reference, I can find the source of almost any old hentai game, animation, or artist. Story 45. I never get sick. For decades, I have not had so much as a cold. Story 46. I once made a YouTube video that unexpectedly blew up and received about 50,000 views in 2 days. YouTube eventually demonetized it and took it down because I used clips from a movie that I believed were copyrighted. But it was a real rush seeing those numbers and notifications so fast. I laughed. It was the closest I have ever gotten to being viral. Story 47. I improved processing time for our application by approximately 1,000 times. We had to load a 5 million cell table with conditional formatting and information in every cell. Lazy loading and pagination were not allowed. I used older imaging storage techniques and caching inspired by the Joint Photographic Experts Group format, and processing time dropped from timing out at 10 minutes to under 30 seconds. So far in my career, that is the most impressive and elegant code I have written. It was eventually retired because it remained too slow for their needs. Story 48. My nose piercing has never been infected or developed a keloid. Even though I skipped all the aftercare steps when I got it, I can remove and reinsert it like a professional. It has been almost 4 years. Story 49. I have mastered the art of stopping the microwave with exactly 1 second left. The final beep is a forgotten myth in my household. Story 50. I was the last person to interview Hockey Hall of Famer Chris Kelios in the National Hockey League and the only member of the media in the room who realized it was his last game. His final game in 2010 was anticlimactic. He returned to the minors to finish the season. Story 51. Once a year I break out my old skateboard and land a tray flip. I still got it. Story 52. I am not American and I do not live in the United States, but I can list all the states in alphabetical order. Story 53. I am highly skilled at finding information from credible sources. Story 54. I was 6 spots away from going to the National Spelling Bee in 5th grade. So far, this fact has not gotten me laid. Story 55. I had a top 2% badge on LinkedIn for the Microsoft PowerPoint skill test. Story 56. I do not think it is weird so much as relatively insignificant. My premise was picked among the top 50 to be developed into a full screenplay by Creative Screenwriting magazine in 2009. It was selected by the winner of the original project Greenlight. Story 57. I can fall asleep anywhere and at any time, on trains, on planes, even during loud concerts. Weird flex but super handy. Story 58. I can bend the tips of my fingers and like to make my friends uncomfortable. Story 59. My odd obsessions change every few weeks. A movie, a book, a fictional character, a new piece of knowledge I acquire, serial killers, crime thrillers, Lana Del Rey, or food. Story 60. I surprised and impressed my wife on our wedding night by solving a Rubik's Cube for the first time in her presence. Story 61. I passed my European Union motorcycle examinations after 18 hours of lessons. I had no prior scooter or moped experience. My examiner said it was impressive. Story 62. I am very good at catching falling objects. If a ball rolls off a table or a bag of chips falls from a shelf, I can usually catch it quickly and prevent it from hitting the floor. Story 63. I have never had the flu or received a flu shot. Story 64. I can parallel park in one smooth move every single time. It is my one true superpower. Story 65. I can solve the Rubik's Cube in less than a minute. I cannot explain it, but when I first picked up a cube, I solved it in less than 5 minutes. I never understood the hype until I saw others struggling with it. Story 66. I can twitch my lower eyelids from side to side. When I was a child, I wanted to be an owl and thought I had to blink like one. Unfortunately, I am not an owl, but I can at least wink in a funny way. Story 67. I can throw cymbals 10 feet into the air and catch them. I am a competitive Winter Guard International cymbal captain. Story 68. I have unusually open hips and have been able to do a middle split since childhood. Story 69. When preparing formula for my young children, I almost always filled the bottle to exactly 200 milliliters on the first try. Story 70. I am 31 and actually on track for retirement. Let us see how this ages. Story 71. I have really good reflexes, but only for catching things like Bluetooth earbuds. Story 72. I am the champion of a video game in my city. Seems nobody cares. Story 73. I can write cursive with both hands at the same time. They are mirror images of each other, so my left hand actually writes backward while my right hand writes forward. Story 74. As a teenager, I once told a police officer, "But beer isn't alcohol." It wasn't off the cuff. It made complete sense given the situation. Story 75. I always find a regular parking spot, not a handicapped one, right in front of where I'm going. It doesn't matter the situation. I've won the Rockstar parking spot lottery for life. This has been going on for 30 years. Story 76. I purchased a boatload of gold and silver a couple of decades ago, and now it is paying off. Story 77. I repair zippers that are jammed, come apart, or will not start. Story 78. I can juggle any three similarly sized objects on short notice and, with some warning, belch a haiku for you. Story 79. I never lose my keys, phone, or wallet. It might seem like a strange boast, but consider how much stress, swearing, and inconvenience my wife endures every day looking for misplaced items. You are in trouble if you lose these things, so you need a system. I have a pegboard next to the front door. Keys and wallet go there the moment I walk in. On the way out, I grab them. My wallet is always in my front left pocket, and my keys are attached by a belt clip to my front left belt or waistband. My phone is always in my front right pocket or in my hand. The only exceptions are when it is clearly visible on a table or placed on one of two charging spots in the house. This routine lets me avoid wasting time and preserves my sanity when searching for essential items. Story 80. I tend to be good at any sport or game I play. When we play regularly, I focus on getting better until I start making it less fun for others. I am not proud of that. Story 81. I married a perfectly normal woman, and we have a child together. Our child is 11 years old and gets straight A's. Story 82. I am very good at filling glass measuring cups with water from the sink. I usually get it right the first time, and if not, I only need a small adjustment. Story 83. I can always find my way back to any place I have driven to at least twice. Story 84. I hold the record for the most fluorescence-activated cell sorting machine time logged in a 24-hour period at my university core. 25 hours. I operated two machines simultaneously for more than 12 hours. Story 85. This is the first year I am maxing out my 401k retirement plan, my individual retirement account, and my health savings account. I am in my late 30s, but better late than never. Story 86. I created the entire vocal track for a song except for a few short samples using "The Moon Is Not a Planet" meme video. Story 87. I have half of a traditional Japanese bodysuit. My entire left side is covered. Every inch is inked. There is not a drop of numbing cream. I am old school and believe that if you have to resort to anesthesia or numbing cream, you do not deserve your tattoos. Story 88. I can juggle with almost anything. I can throw an object, make it do a 360-degree loop, and catch it at the same point I threw it from. It works with medium-sized objects about the size of my forearm, usually by the third try. Story 89. I am naturally good at mental math, well above average. Story 90. I can remember the most random, mundane things from decades ago. Don't ask me what I did 10 minutes ago. I won't remember. Story 91. 2 years ago, I learned the names of all the countries and their flags. Story 92. I can fit boxes into trucks and odd-shaped items into cars. I can accurately determine whether one item will fit inside another. I receive many requests to help with packing for moves. Story 93. I do not know if this is a flex, but I can see through corporate bullshit. A charismatic executive does not mean they are good people or have your interests in mind, despite what their words say. Story 94. I don't get hangovers. I'm careful about drinking and honestly didn't understand people who do. I sometimes get very drunk, but usually just before I black out I throw up, drink a lot of water, and eat a sandwich or more. Then I have a giant glass of water, take a few aspirin, and go to bed. I sleep poorly and wake up tired, but I never have a headache or nausea. I'm extremely hungry afterward. Story 95. I am barely affected by jet lag. I can adjust to the new time zone almost immediately. Story 96. I had to poop during a 3 to 4 hour exam similar to the Scholastic Assessment Test, with 15 minutes per chapter. I lost about half the time on 2 chapters but still scored 100% in both. Story 97. I once played a 3 versus 3 Age of Empires game online with random players. My 2 teammates were eliminated fairly early in the game. I ended up winning. It was a regicide scenario. I waited for them to research a technology, then moved my king to a random corner and sent my entire army behind their lines with heavy catapults and trebuchets. They had kept all 3 kings in a fortified location with a forest behind it. Story 98. I can remember conversations and any fact you tell me. I'm sorry, I'm bad with names. Story 99. I passed my driver's test in a manual transmission car on my first attempt. Story 100. I can insert a universal serial bus type A connector correctly on the first try 90% of the time, and need at most 1 additional attempt. Story 101. I can remember every embarrassing thing I've ever said, but I still sleep fine at night. Story 102. I completed the United States Series 7 exam, a 4-hour exam that was previously administered as an all-day test. I finished both parts of the exam in just under 45 minutes. I had been working in the same industry in Canada for a while, which helped. I highly recommend the Kaplan study materials, specifically the online questions and answers. My boss was very surprised to see me at the office by 9:30 in the morning. Story 103. I've never broken a bone despite being super clumsy my whole life. Story 104. I can tell the difference between butter and I cannot believe it is not butter. Story 105. I can calculate a National Health Service pension. This means very little to most people here, but to the healthcare staff in the United Kingdom, it is a genuine superpower. Story 106. I spent 8 years serving in the Navy, including 2 deployments and 1 permanent change of station. I have never set foot on a ship. Story 107. I have a few, not necessarily weird. 1. I can say the alphabet backwards. 2. I can drive a manual transmission. 3. I can change a tire and change the oil. I am surprised by how many women I know who cannot. 4. I care for others very deeply. Story 108. I can time travel. I put a blanket on and skipped 1 day easily. Story 109. I can name all 50 states in the United States. I had to memorize them in the 5th grade 50 years ago. Story 110. I think I am self-aware. Too many people around me feel like non-player characters, always doing and saying the same thing. Story 111. I can pluck hair from anywhere on my body without flinching. Well, almost anywhere. Story 112. I was the original creator of a wiki project on Wikipedia for the Metro Vancouver region. Noting inconsistent, low-quality articles, I created the project to address them. I was not alone. With other editors it took off. I am no longer involved, but it continues to do well. Story 113. I was partying with my then girlfriend, now wife, and a friend of hers. While I was in the bathroom, the friend told my wife to let her know immediately if we ever broke up because she wanted a chance with me. She said I was smart, sexy, and kind. When I returned, I asked my wife what was going on because I felt I had walked into a conversation. My wife said I was reserved and that her friend was next in line. My flex is that I was complimented as a keeper, and my wife trusted that I would not act on that information. Story 114. I can remember exactly where I left anything, but only if someone else lost it. Story 115. When I was a kid, I would always smell random things and get weird looks. I did not think it was strange until I grew older. Now I can identify the strangest smells that leave everyone else in the room baffled. Story 116. When I set a timer on Alexa, I can ask, Alexa, how much time is left on my timer? I am usually within a minute, sometimes within 10 seconds, and more than once I have hit it literally the second before it goes off. Story 117. I am really good at digging holes. Give me a decent shovel, and after I have sharpened it, you can watch me disappear into the ground. Story 118. I can usually translate between engineers and operators well. I had to do it a few times at my last job. I am married to an engineer and worked as an operator. Story 119. I have never paid a penny of interest to a credit card company. Story 120. I can maintain my balance on either leg for an indefinite amount of time. I can wear socks and shoes while maintaining my balance, even on sand. Story 121. I can do everything, from shearing sheep to making yarn. It's strange because people are usually baffled and wonder why anyone would want to do that whenever it comes up. Story 122. I set up a tarp over my tent right before the rain and stayed dry all night. Not a single drop inside or on it. I smiled proudly all day afterward. Story 123. I can move my buttocks one at a time. I can also move my knees and gastrocnemius muscles. Story 124. I have double-jointed elbows, so I can turn them inside out. I do it often without realizing because it is more comfortable for me. It really freaks people out if they happen to notice. That makes me happy. Story 125. I do not remember exactly what I said, but this was before Twitch, when we had Justin Television. I was watching something and an annoying person was in the chat. I was not a moderator and could not do anything, so I decided to get this person banned by trolling him. I picked a fight and made him so angry that he began cursing at me. I followed the rules, so I did not get banned, but he did. Story 126. I might be the first person to give a video game vixen a Brazilian butt lift. Story 127. I can tell you within a few seconds of music what part of the Mummy is on. My dad tried to trick me once with the sequel, but I knew. Story 128. I commented on a post by Christopher Paolini on Facebook with a small joke, and he reacted with a laughing face emoji. Story 129. I can parallel park like a boss, but can't fold a fitted sheet to save my life. Story 130. I can design and build a quality habitat for any animal. Most people ask for small fish tanks or a bioactive enclosure for their snakes or frogs, but occasionally I work with large clients such as zoos. I can create enclosures for tigers, rhinoceroses, bears, tortoises, zebras, and more. Story 131. I sing Nessun Dorma's Victory to intimidate my opponents in lightsaber tournaments. Story 132. I can name almost any popular song from the last century after hearing the first few seconds. I am a ringer at trivia nights. Story 133. I can make a perfect eggs Benedict faster than most people can fry a perfect egg. Story 134. I can do most things, but I do not excel at any of them. Story 135. I see numbers and letters in color, grapheme color synesthesia. Since the colors of each letter remain consistent at all times, I can easily remember things like spellings, names, and dates. I just remember the color palette, and if the colors look wrong, I know I made a mistake. Story 136. I am strangely good at splitting things into threes, like folding a letter or a towel, or cutting a burrito. Story 137. I can hold my breath for 3 minutes and 6 seconds underwater. Story 138. I can talk to anyone about anything without being awkward. It does not matter the topic. Story 139. Animals, especially cats, love me. I have gained the trust of many stray and semi-feral cats. There was one I was feeding who was so feral that she would run away and hide at the sight of people. I built trust with her to the point that she allowed me to begin petting her only a little. She has since passed away, but I am glad she experienced some love and a few pets before then. Story 140. I've never broken or lost a single pair of sunglasses. Not one. I don't even use cases. They just survive. I'm starting to think it's my mutant ability. Story 141. I can repackage items to make them look and used. I can do this with sheet sets, dress shirts, and electronics. I did this with a steam mop my wife did not like. It was past the return window unless unused, but I got a full refund. Story 142. I can type over 100 words per minute with 95% accuracy. Messing around with coworkers on monkey type and getting competitive helped me cultivate a skill that is relevant in my field. It's not overtly about how fast you can type, but being quick on a computer helps a lot. Story 143. I can bend my pinky completely flat against the back of my finger. Story 144. I am a plus-size white person weighing 300 pounds and I can do the Asian squat. Story 145. I can fall asleep anywhere, such as on a bus, at a party, or in a waiting room. People think it's weird, but honestly I'm proud of it. I never have trouble getting enough sleep, laughing out loud. Story 146. I worked as a professional handyman for a year. I also have a Doctor of Philosophy in Engineering. It is unusual that I am more proud of being a handyman than of my academic achievements. Story 147. Elon Musk spoke at my graduation. I remember nothing because I fell asleep. Story 148. Working side by side with my husband, we built a life with minimal debt. We owned a paid-off home and a new car before we turned 30, and then bought more than 100 acres of land to start a multi-generational farm. We sold both the paid-off home and the car to help offset a $20,000 down payment for the land, and we hope to be free of the new car payment by next summer. Story 149. I've never once lost an earring back. I don't know how, but I've kept every single one since high school. My jewelry box looks like a time capsule of tiny victories. Story 150. I tame feral cats with persistence and Stockholm Syndrome, laughing out loud. I thought I had finally failed with one, but after 3 years I could touch her. Now, at 11 years old, she sleeps in my bed, joins us on the couch, and is generally a pest who demands pets and affection. When I did this regularly, I was given the feisty cats other volunteers did not want or had been bitten by. Story 151. I can make myself queef. I lie on my back with my elbows on the ground, prop my hips up with my hands, spread my legs to trap air, close my legs, and queef when I sit up. Story 152. I am a court reporter. On my machine, I can write 225 words per minute with 97.5% accuracy. Story 153. I alphabetize my spice rack, and yes, it brings me peace. Story 154. I can parallel park in one clean move. No backing up and no readjusting, just one fluid, confident motion. It's my Roman Empire. Story 155. I can take long naps and still have no problem falling asleep at night. Story 156. My hands are abnormally large for my build. I am 5 feet 4 inches tall, and my hands measure 10 inches. They are strong, which makes me unusually good at skills usually associated with larger people. I can palm a basketball and shoot it, open champagne bottles with one hand, and so on. Story 157. I've never once hit snooze. When my alarm goes off, I'm up like a robot. It's my only personality trait that feels vaguely impressive. Story 158. I obtained my train driver's license before my regular car driver's license. Story 159. I don't get bruises anymore. I have no idea why. I used to get them in high school when I played football and always had bruises in the same spots from shoulder pads. One day during my sophomore year they went away, and I have not gotten a bruise since. If I tell people this in person, they invariably hit my arm very hard. Story 160. I can click my thumb at will. It sounds as if I am breaking it, but I am not. Story 161. I still remember everyone's coffee order from my last job, and it has been 4 years. I cannot remember my tax due date, but Kyle liked oat milk, 1 pump of caramel, no whipped cream. Story 162. I can tell you the day of the week for any date, past or future. Story 163. I used to have one enormous testicle that remained unbeaten in drunken biggest testicle standoffs, even against rival groups. It was later drained of fluid, so those days are behind me. I was dominant back then, Story 164. I was in a group and one person could not remember a woman's name. I said Mulva. No one got the joke, so I had to explain it. They still did not find it funny. Story 165. I can name the date of most broadcast errors that occurred on Nickelodeon. Yes, I am autistic. Story 166. When I was 15, a kid asked for my autograph because I was dating a girl who had been on a Disney show a few years earlier. The group of kids recognized her and wanted autographs. One said, "What the hell? I'll get the boyfriend's autograph too." Weird. Story 167. My wife and I celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary this past weekend. We had a big party at our house. Many guests took either her or me aside and told us some variation of, "You two have a fantastic marriage," or "When I get married, I hope my marriage is like yours." My favorite moment was when a longtime friend smiled at me, pointed between my wife and me, and said, "Goals." Story 168. I have many close friends who are not into drama and a variety of hobbies, which makes me think I am an interesting person. Story 169. I am a long-time drinker. I have never had a driving under the influence conviction. I have decades of partying under my belt. Friends are still stunned when I show up to events and get-togethers by taxi or rideshare. I know I am drinking, but I have no interest in killing myself or anyone else on my way home. Story 170. I can calm a crying baby, but as a man no stranger has handed me a crying baby to calm. I've even offered to help. I do well with my own children and relatives. Story 171. I can mimic the clown nose honk perfectly. All the babies love it. Story 172. I saw the live world debut of the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard song "I'm Sleepin'" performed by the cover band Ning Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Story 173. I don't need an alarm to wake up. My anxiety ensures that my eyes snap open half an hour before I need to be awake, no matter how tired I am. Story 174. On August 28, 2025, I and fellow passengers on Acela Train 2153 broke the United States rail speed record for a regular fare-paying passenger train. We reached 160 miles per hour, or 258 kilometers per hour. It is a modest achievement by European or East Asian standards, but it was exciting for this continent. Story 175. I was the original creator of the Wikipedia article about pink plastic flamingos. Story 176. I was just showing my coworkers how talented I am at writing backwards. I used to write on the inside of windows. Story 177. I helped test well-known video games between the ages of 7 and 14. I had an Xbox debug kit at home and still have test copies of those games. I miss it a lot. Story 178. I have been swimming since I was 3, and now when I sleep my resting heart rate is 35 beats per minute. Story 179. At age 39, my band won a major award in New York. Having been deaf since age 3, I never expected to be in a band while growing up. Story 180. I got asked out by 8 guys at once. One time during my 8th grade year, I had a massive glow-up and was getting attention from guys left and right. One guy, let's call him Chris, came up to me with about 7 friends and said, "I have a massive thing for you. Do you think I could get your number and we could start dating?" Before I could answer, his friends interrupted with comments like, "Look how fine he is, he's so nice." After they were done, I politely said no and rejected him. Not even 10 seconds later, the other guy started asking, "You're not that bad looking. You're low-key kind of fine. What do you think about me? Do I have a chance?" They were just trying to get with me, and I rejected them too. I'm not sure why I'm proud of this, but it still gives my self-esteem a huge boost. Story 181. I got slimed on a Nickelodeon show when I was a kid. It happened because I beat the first level of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 the fastest in a strange challenge. Story 182. I can spot cats from far away. There is a very tall apartment building on the opposite side of the street. I see an orange cat in the window on the 6th floor, snoozing on the cat tree. Story 183. When a cup or glass gets stuck inside another, I can always get them apart. I work as a dishwasher, and my coworkers struggle with it half the time and bring the cups to me. I could probably teach them how to do it easily now that I have figured out my method. But where is the fun in that? Story 184. I have had to report my Magic the Gathering tournament winnings on my taxes for several years. Story 185. I have at least one of each card, counting the lowest rarity from the Godzilla card game set 1. I am very proud of it and hope to do the same for set 2. Story 186. I have a great memory, especially when it comes to numbers. Story 187. I once impressed a magician with my card-cutting skills. I spent a lot of time in meetings for work and kept fidget toys around to stay busy. My favorite was a pack of cards that I used to practice one-handed cuts. We were at a magic show, and the opening act consisted of several close-up magicians walking between tables and performing card tricks and other close-up magic. One magician performed a trick I did not remember and then asked me to hold out my hand. He placed a deck of cards on my palm and asked me to cut the cards, so I instinctively cut them one-handed. He looked surprised and asked if I was a magician. I replied that no, that was the only trick I knew. Story 188. I impressed a magician with my card-cutting skills. I spend a lot of time in meetings for work and have fidget toys everywhere to keep me occupied. My favorite is a pack of cards that I use to practice one-handed cuts. We were at a magic show and the opening act was a group of close-up magicians walking around to different tables doing card tricks and other close-up magic. For one trick, he performed a routine which I honestly do not remember and then asked me to hold out my hand. He placed a deck of cards on my hand and told me to cut the cards, so I instinctively cut them one-handed. His eyes widened and he asked, "Are you a magician too?" I replied sheepishly, "No, that is the only trick I know." Story 189. I impressed a magician with my card-cutting skills. I spend a lot of time in work meetings and keep fidget toys everywhere to stay busy. My favorite is a pack of cards that I use to practice one-handed cuts. At a magic show, the opening act featured several close-up magicians who walked among the tables performing card tricks and other close-up magic. For one trick, he did things I do not remember, then asked me to hold out my hand and placed a deck of cards on it. He told me to cut the cards, so I instinctively cut them one-handed. His eyes grew wide and he asked if I was a magician. I replied sheepishly that no, that was the only trick I knew. Story 190. I impressed a magician with my card-cutting skills. I spent a lot of time in work meetings and kept fidget toys around to stay busy. My favorite was a pack of cards that I used to practice one-handed cuts. We were at a magic show, and the open act consisted of close-up magicians walking between tables performing card tricks and other magic. For one trick he performed, which I did not remember, he asked me to hold out my hand and placed a deck of cards on it. He told me to cut the cards, so I instinctively cut them one-handed. His eyes grew wide and he asked if I was a magician too. I sheepishly said no. That was the only trick I knew. Story 191. I impressed a magician with my card-cutting skills. I spend a lot of time in meetings and keep fidget toys around to stay busy. My favorite is a pack of cards that I use to practice one-handed cuts. At a magic show, the opening act featured several close-up magicians who walked between tables performing card tricks. For one trick, the performer asked me to hold out my hand and placed a deck on it. He asked me to cut the cards, so I instinctively executed a one-handed cut. His eyes widened and he asked if I was a magician. I sheepishly replied that it was the only trick I knew and laughed. Story 192. I have time blindness due to autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder. But I always know when a timer is about to go off just before it does. Could be a few minutes or more than an hour. I can sense it coming. Story 193. Give me a solid 1 to 2 minutes of stillness, and I will be knocked out completely, as if I had taken a bottle of NyQuil. It does not matter whether it is day or night. Sitting or standing, even surrounded by people, it does not matter. Story 194. I have never owned an automatic car. I have owned only manual transmission vehicles. I am from Los Angeles. Story 195. I earned a sash that says I am the owner of America's tightest vagina. It never leaves the house, but I love looking at it in the mirror when I try on outfits for dates. Story 196. I am the finder of things. When my wife asks where an item is, a picture of the item in its place appears in my head. I either go get it or tell her where it is. It may be in a box we have not opened since we moved more than 2 years ago, but I can tell her which box to look in. Story 197. I am really good at whistling and making trumpet noises. I am also a decent beatboxer. Story 198. I can, 9 times out of 10, get a baby to stop crying by making silly faces at them. Most people can calm some babies, but for me it works on almost all of them. Story 199. I can visualize the relationship dynamics between any two people I know and turn them into colors, shapes, and, frankly, an art piece if I wanted to. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.